The Secret of the Rose. Bardo, let's play hide and seek, please, Sarah said to the ant. Are we playing just the two of us? Do you see anyone else here? Sarah added with a hint of sarcasm. Bardo shrugged her shoulders lightly and looked around. Indeed, there was no one else besides the two of them. Only rustling grasses, swaying trees, and silhouettes of horses grazing peacefully by the fence in a distance. Since the day promised to be calm and lazy, and Sarah looked truly bored, the ant decided not to keep her waiting long and finally replied, "All right, but I count first. Hide yourself. Time starts now." Sarah ran off with her energetic and excited pace. Bardo was certain she would think of something difficult because Sarah didn't like to lose. And besides, she loved discovering new places and always found the strangest hiding spots. The ant began to count slowly. 1, 2, 3, and when she reached 99, she opened her eyes and went to look for Sarah. She had already made her third lap around the house, but Sarah was nowhere to be found. Frustrated, she decided to rest in a garden where such silence had fallen that it seemed as if the entire surroundings held their breath in anticipation of discovering the hiding place. And shortly after, a loud cry rang out, "Ow!" because Bardo had caught her finger on a thorn of the largest wild rose that grew there. "Ow!" she cried again, certain that Sarah would hear her and finally stop looking for her. But Sarah was nowhere to be found, and the world around her began spinning like a wild carousel. Colors mixed together. The red of the rose with the green of the grass, the blue of the sky with the gold of the sun, and everything suddenly stopped in midair, as if time itself wanted to pause for a split second to wonder what on earth was happening here. Bardo felt herself becoming even smaller than usual. Light as dandelion fluff and the sounds of a garden, birdsong, rustling leaves, buzzing bees, merged into one melodious hall. When the swirling stopped, Bardo opened her eyes and froze in wonder. She found herself in a place filled with pink radiance and extraordinary peace. The walls around her were velvety and soft, in shades from the most delicate pink to deep purple. The air smelled sweet and intense, and warm, golden light penetrated through the transparent walls. "Where am I?" whispered the ant, looking around in disbelief at the magical place. "Sarah! Sarah!" she called once more, this time louder. "This isn't funny. Where did you hide?" Bardo looked around and noticed that the world she had found herself in was enchanting. Long and tall corridors branch out in different directions, leading sometimes up, sometimes down. The soft, velvety walls glowed and pulsed, giving the impression of a living, breathing place. "It looks like a labyrinth," she whispered to herself, taking her first step toward the nearest passage. She chose the first one at hand and moved forward, calling once more, "Sarah! Sarah, I'm here! What kind of hiding place is this?" But the only answer was the echo of her own voice, bouncing off the delicate walls. The further she walked, the more she realized this was no ordinary labyrinth. Images began appearing on the walls. On the first one, she saw a loudly and carefully laughing figure, full of life in a light, golden dress that seemed to be woven from shimmering scattered starlight. She was running through a colorful meadow without a shadow of fear or hesitation, and behind her trailed a stream of glittering, rainbow sparklers that fell onto the grass like magical dust. The second one showed several dancing figures around a stage resembling a bonfire. One of them stood on a large stage in front of a crowd of people who listened to her words with delight. Her voice carried confidently and strongly throughout the entire stage, and the listeners' eyes sparkled with curiosity and emotion. In the third image, she saw a figure sitting at an ancient carved desk, writing something in a large leather-bound book with a pen that looked as if it were made of crystal. Her face radiated peace and wisdom, and small, golden sparks rose from the book's pages, as if the words themselves possessed magical power. As soon as she finished writing a sentence, the letters began to glow and lifted from the page, creating swirling constellations in the air. But when Bardo took another step forward, she stopped dead in her tracks. The fourth image was completely different, dark and disturbing. She saw a lonely figure sitting in an empty, grey room without windows. The walls were bare and cold, and the only source of light was a small flickering candle. The figure held empty pages in her hands, and her eyes were full of sadness and resignation. Shadows floated around her, whispering from every side words full of doubt. "You're too small. It's pointless. It will be worse there." Bardo felt a cold shiver run down her back. The image seemed to try to draw her in. The ants quickened her pace, almost running to pass it as quickly as possible. Her heart beat fast, and her breathing became increasingly shallow. She didn't want to look at his vision for another second. "No, no, no," she whispered to herself, speeding up even more. "This can't be true." Until finally, all sweaty, she reached the fifth image, and her breathing calmed down. The fifth image showed a cozy house with large shutters. Several people sat around a round table discussing plans for a trip to one of the exotic islands, surrounded by turquoise water and white, almost transparent sand. Everyone was laughing, spreading out maps, photographs, and souvenirs from various corners of the world that Bardo didn't recognize. One of them was a seashell. From its interior came a gentle whisper. "I too sometimes fear being myself." But before the ant could fully grasp the meaning of those words, suddenly the entire labyrinth began spinning again. The corridors shrunk and the images on the wall started blending into one swirl of undulating colors. The red of a rose with the green of a grass, the blue of a sky with the gold of a sun, and once more she felt as if someone was trying to pull her into this whirlwind, and then silence. Bardo wrapped her eyes and saw the familiar surroundings of the garden. She stood in exactly the same place where she had touched the rose, but there was no trace of a prick on her hand. "Did you stand there for this long? I thought you were looking for me," said Sarah, sounding offended. The ant looked at her friend with doubt, as if Sarah owed her an explanation. She stood there for several dozen seconds, then, coming to her senses, still somewhat disoriented, replied, "Have you ever been inside a rose?" And without waiting for an answer, she added, Well, I mean, now it's your turn to count, and I will hide," she added. Sarah gave the ant another scrutinizing look and began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 90, 91.